My meticulously planned life was about to be secured until a mysterious old woman stopped me with an impossible truth. The future I was running toward was a complete lie. The city was a symphony of impatience, and I was its lead conductor. Horns blared, tourists shuffled, and the humid summer air clung to my suit jacket like a desperate ghost. I had exactly 12 minutes to get to the law offices of Sterling and Croft for the interview that would define my entire career. My meticulously polished shoes clicked a frantic rhythm on the pavement, a beat matched only by the frantic thumping in my chest. I was so focused, so locked in on the gleaming skyscraper ahead, that I barely registered the blur of color at the edge of the crowded market square I was cutting through. Then, a hand shot out and clamped around my wrist. It was surprisingly strong, wiry and cool despite the heat, the skin like ancient parchment. "Wait!" The voice was raspy, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. I flinched, trying to wrench my arm free. My first thought was pickpocket. My second was scam artist. I risked a glance and saw an old woman, her face a breathtaking web of wrinkles, her eyes like chips of obsidian that seemed to see right through my ambition and anxiety. She wore a cascade of colorful scarves, and the air around her smelled faintly of sandalwood and something else, something earthy and wild. "I don't have any cash," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended, "and I'm late for something incredibly important." "More important than your life?" she asked, her grip not loosening in the slightest. Her eyes weren't looking at my face, but at my hand, the one she held captive. I scoffed, a bubble of indignant laughter escaping my lips. "Look, lady, I really don't have time for this." This was classic tourist trap nonsense. Tell me my fortune, reveal a dark stranger in my future, then demand $20 for the privilege. I had read all the guides. I was a local. I was smarter than this. I tried to pull away again, more forcefully this time. Her fingers tightened, digging into the bones of my wrist. "The path you run on is crumbling behind you," she whispered, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. "You think you are running toward your future, but you are running from the truth." Okay, that was a good line, I'll give her that. It was still generic fortune cookie wisdom, but delivered with a chilling conviction that made the hairs on my arm stand up. Still, I had a future to secure, a partnership track to conquer. "Thanks for the advice," I said, finally yanking my hand free. "I'll keep that in mind." I turned, ready to sprint the last 2 blocks. My career, my meticulously planned life, was waiting. "The picture in your wallet," she called out after me. "The one folded behind your credit card. Your little sister, Chloe, by the lake. Her red ribbon is coming undone." I froze mid-stride. Every muscle in my body went rigid. The sounds of the city, the horns, the chatter, the distant siren all faded into a dull, muted roar. How could she know that? It wasn't just a picture of Chloe. It was a specific one, from a family trip 5 years ago. I'd folded it and tucked it away as a good luck charm when I first moved to the city. No one knew it was there. Not my parents, not Chloe herself, and certainly not my fiancé, Mark. And the detail. The red ribbon in her hair. I could see it in my mind's eye, a single fraying strand escaping the bow. Slowly, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, I turned back around. My bravado, my skepticism, it had all evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. The 5 minutes I'd allotted for this detour were almost up, but the interview at Sterling and Croft suddenly seemed like a triviality from another lifetime. I walked back to her, my expensive shoes feeling like lead weights. How did you know that?" She didn't smile. Her expression was one of profound, weary sadness. She reached out and took my hand again, but this time I let her. Her thumb traced the lines on my palm, her touch sending an unnerving tingle up my arm. "Some things are written clearly," she said softly. Others are hidden in shadows. You carry a shadow with you, a lie you live with every day." "A lie?" I stammered. "What lie? My life is an open book." It was true. I was pathologically honest, a straight arrow. It's what Mark always said he loved about me. Mark. The perfect man, the perfect partner, the perfect final piece of my perfect life. The old woman's obsidian eyes finally lifted from my palm and met mine. The intensity in them stole the air from my lungs. "You're Mark," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but cutting through the city noise like a shard of glass. "The man who gave you the ring on your finger. He is not who he says he is." My first instinct was to laugh, to defend him, but the certainty in her gaze held me fast. "He has another name," she continued, her thumb pressing down hard on the center of my palm. "And he has another family, a wife and a little boy. The boy has your fiancé's eyes." The world tilted on its axis. A wave of nausea washed over me. This was impossible. It was a trick, a cruel, elaborate guess. Mark and I were inseparable. We shared everything. I knew his parents, his friends, his whole life story. Seeing the disbelief and horror warring on my face, the old woman leaned in closer, her voice dropping even lower. "You don't believe me. Good. You should not believe a stranger. But you will believe your own eyes." She let go of my hand and pointed a bony finger down a side street. "Go to the coffee shop at the end of that alley, the one with the green awning. It's called The Daily Grind. Go to the counter and tell the barista you have a mobile order for Sarah." "Sarah?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "I don't understand." "You don't have to," she said, pulling her colorful scarves tighter around her shoulders. She looked past me then, as if seeing someone standing right behind me. "Just ask for the order. Your sister Chloe already paid for it. She's waiting for you inside." "Chloe?" My blood ran cold, then hot, then cold again. The name hung in the air, a nonsensical anchor in a swirling sea of impossibility. Chloe was at her university 300 miles away, cramming for her midterms. I'd just spoken to her last night. We'd talked about her art history professor, about the terrible cafeteria food, about my upcoming interview. She was fine. She was normal. She was not here. The gypsy said nothing more. She simply gave me a final, pitying look, then turned and melted back into the river of people flowing through the market square, leaving me standing alone on the pavement, my world fractured. My interview at Sterling and Croft, the pinnacle of my 5-year plan, was gone from my mind, erased as if it had never existed. There was only the alley, the green awning, and my sister's name spoken by a stranger. My feet moved before my brain did. I walked into the alleyway, a narrow canyon between 2 brick buildings that smelled of damp cardboard and stale grease. The cacophony of the main square faded, replaced by the low hum of an industrial air conditioner. Each step felt disconnected, as if I were watching someone else in a movie. My mind scrambled for a rational explanation. It was a prank. A ridiculously elaborate, cruel prank. Chloe must have hired this woman. But why? And how could she have known about the photograph? I'd never even shown it to her. At the end of the alley, just as she'd said, was The Daily Grind. It was a quaint, unassuming place, its windows fogged with condensation. Through the glass, I could see people hunched over laptops, sipping from ceramic mugs. It was a pocket of absolute normalcy in what had become the most surreal day of my life. For a moment, I considered turning back, running to my interview, and pretending the last 5 minutes had been a heat-induced hallucination. But the name Chloe was a hook in my heart, and it was pulling me forward. I pushed open the door. A little bell chimed overhead, a cheerful sound that felt mocking. The warm, rich scent of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon enveloped me, a comforting aroma that was completely at odds with the terror coiling in my stomach. A young man with a man bun and a nose ring stood behind the counter, wiping it down with a cloth. He looked up and smiled. "What can I get for you?" My mouth was dry. My carefully practiced, confident lawyer's voice had deserted me. I think I have a mobile order," I managed to squeak out. "Sure thing. What's the name?" This was it. The moment of truth. Saying the name out loud felt like casting a spell. "Sarah," I whispered. His brow furrowed for a second as he tapped on his tablet screen. Sarah, got it! 1 large latte, extra shot." He turned around, grabbed a cup from a lineup on the back counter, and placed it in front of me. The name Sarah was scrawled on the side in black marker. It was real. My hand trembled as I reached for the cup. The cardboard was warm against my cold skin. I took it, my eyes scanning the small cafe. A couple of students, an old man reading a newspaper, a woman typing furiously on her phone. No Chloe. A wave of dizzying relief washed over me. The old woman was wrong. She was crazy. Chloe wasn't here. It was all some bizarre, horrible coincidence. I turned to leave, ready to bolt, to salvage what was left of my sanity and maybe even my interview. And then I saw her. In the darkest corner of the shop, sitting at a small table, was a woman I vaguely recognized. She had warm, olive skin and kind, dark eyes. She was staring right at me, a sad, knowing expression on her face. It took my brain a few seconds to place her. It was the woman from the silver-framed photos on Mark's desk, the ones he kept next to his computer. His cousin Sarah, the one who lived in Spain, a freelance graphic designer he was so proud of. My heart stopped, and then it started again, a painful, violent drumming against my ribs, because sitting on the table in front of her, propped up against a sugar dispenser, was another silver frame, a bigger one, and in it was a photograph of her, Mark, and a little boy of about 4 years old, all of them laughing on a sun-drenched beach. The boy was a perfect fusion of the two of them. He had his mother's smile and his father's eyes, Mark's eyes. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor and splashing hot latte across my polished shoes. The sound echoed in the suddenly silent cafe. I couldn't breathe. My vision swam. The gypsy was right. All of it. The lie I was living wasn't my own, but it was suffocating me all the same. Rage, white-hot and blinding, began to burn through the shock. I took a step toward her, ready to scream, to demand answers, to shatter this placid cafe scene with the full force of my betrayal. But before I could say a word, Sarah's expression softened into one of deep, profound pity. She spoke, her voice quiet but clear, cutting through my rising hysteria. "You must be his fiancé," she said, her voice laced with an accent that was definitely not Spanish. "I'm so sorry. I begged her not to do it this way." "Her?" I choked out, my voice raw. "Who?" Sarah's gaze drifted past me towards the front door of the coffee shop. "Chloe," she said softly, "your sister has been trying to tell you for weeks." The name Chloe, spoken again, didn't register as my sister. It was just a sound, a word that belonged to this waking nightmare. I turned slowly, my entire body feeling like it was moving through water. The bell above the door chimed again, and a figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the bright light of the alley. As my eyes adjusted, the silhouette resolved into a familiar shape. My little sister's wild curly hair, her favorite worn-out denim jacket, her nervous habit of chewing on her lower lip. It was Chloe. She was really here. She looked pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination. She saw the spilled coffee, she saw me, she saw the woman who was supposed to be in Spain, and her face crumpled. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I tried to tell you on the phone so many times, but you were always so happy, so busy with the interview. I didn't know how." The rage that had been building inside me deflated in an instant, replaced by a vast, hollow confusion. "Tell me what, Chloe? What is going on?" I looked from her to the woman at the table. "Who is she?" "She's not Sarah," Chloe said, taking a tentative step towards me. "Her name is Maria, and she's not his cousin. She's his wife." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stumbled back, my hand finding the edge of the counter to steady myself. Maria, the wife, just nodded sadly, her gaze fixed on the photo of her and Mark and their son. "I found out by accident," Chloe continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I was helping my friend with a photography project, scrolling through event photos from a charity gala in the city from last year, and I saw him, Mark. He was with her and their little boy, David. They were listed as a family in the caption. The Andersons. The Andersons, not the Carsons. Mark Carson was the name I was going to take. I felt a hysterical laugh bubble in my throat. I'd been planning a wedding to a man whose last name was a lie. "I didn't believe it at first," Chloe said, her eyes welling with tears. "I thought it was a mistake, so I did some digging. It wasn't hard to find her online. Maria Anderson, she's a pediatrician. They live 40 minutes outside the city. They've been married for 6 years. 6 years. Our entire relationship, every I love you, every shared dream, every promise for the future had been a meticulously constructed lie layered on top of another woman's life. He wasn't just cheating. He was living a double existence. He was a phantom. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I tried," she insisted, her voice breaking. "Every time I'd call, you'd talk about the wedding plans, about the partnership track, about how perfect everything was. You built this entire future around him. How could I be the one to tell you it was all fake? I thought if you saw it for yourself, you'd have to believe it." She explained the rest, how she'd contacted Maria, who, after her own initial shock and denial, had slowly come to accept the unbelievable truth. Mark, or whatever his real name was, had been telling her he was an international sales consultant, that his job required him to be in the city for weeks at a time. 2 lives, 2 names, 2 women who thought they had his whole heart. Chloe had arranged this meeting, hoping that a face-to-face confrontation would be undeniable. The gypsy. That was an act of desperation. "Maria told me you had an interview today in this part of town," Chloe explained, wiping her eyes. "I knew you'd be on a tight schedule, that you wouldn't stop for anything. So I paid that old woman in the market to stop you. I gave her details. The picture in your wallet, the red ribbon, things only I would know. I told her to send you here." It all clicked into place. The impossible knowledge, the cryptic warnings. It wasn't mysticism. It was a sister's desperate last-ditch effort to save me from a life built on sand. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen read, "Sterling and Croft." I had missed my interview. The career I had sacrificed so much for, the future I had been running towards, was gone. And in its place was a strange, terrifying, and profound sense of relief. The path I was on had been crumbling behind me. The gypsy was right. I looked at Maria. She had tears silently streaming down her face, but she met my gaze with a look of shared, wounded strength. I looked at Chloe, my brave, brilliant little sister, who had risked my wrath to tell me a truth I wasn't ready to hear. "Thank you," I said, my voice finally steady. I walked over to the table and picked up the silver-framed photo. I looked at the laughing man, the stranger who had slept in my bed and worn a ring that matched mine. I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a cold, clean emptiness. I turned to Maria. "What do you want to do?" A flicker of something hard and resolute entered her eyes. "I want to go home," she said, "and I want to change the locks." I nodded. "Good." I took off my engagement ring, the diamond that had once felt like a symbol of my perfect future, and placed it on the table next to the photograph of his other family. It looked small and tawdry now, a prop in a pathetic play. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need a dramatic showdown. His power over me was built on a lie, and now that the lie was gone, so was he. I walked over to Chloe and pulled her into a hug, burying my face in her familiar denim jacket. She was real. Her love was real. That was the foundation that remained. We walked out of the daily grind together, leaving the remnants of my shattered life on the table behind us. The bell chimed one last time as we stepped out into the alley and back towards the chaotic, vibrant city. My meticulously planned future was in ruins, but for the first time all day, I could finally breathe.